Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is the Angry Chicken back for 2020. There's so many 20s in this year. I can't handle it. Garrett, can't handle it. But I am here with Jocelyn, who I hope can, because otherwise it's going to be a problematic podcast. How you doing, Joss?
I'm not too bad. There's only 2 20s in 2020.
Which is
just 2 is too many. That's
twice as
you draw
many
your line at 1
20s as there has ever been in the year.
Fair enough.
That's a lot of 20s, okay? And I've got to get used to this for essentially the next 10 years, because then it'll be 2021 and 2022 and so on and so forth, because that's how time works. It is linear.
I was going to say, so Garrett knows how to count. Nailed it.
Sometimes, Jocelyn. If I'm calculating lethal, that's not always guaranteed.
You're all over years.
Yes. But welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. I had a lot of projects to take care of that were less than festive.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. Home improvement and renovation that you don't want to do. It's because things are broken, not because you just want to make it look nicer.
Oh, man, that sucks.
Yeah, it looks the same. It's just not broken. That's what I dealt with over the holiday break. But anyways, speaking of the new year, Jocelyn, we've been talking to our buddies over at HS Replay. We mentioned the website a lot, and as I try to make painfully obvious, we are not actually sponsored. We just like their website. Though, by the way, HS Replay, if you're listening, you know. But they keep asking, like, hey, we have access to so many things, so many statistics. We can even generate graphics. Is there anything you've ever wanted to know? And then they were like, you know, we could give you the most popular archetypes of 2019 and even throw it in an animated graphic. And I was like, hell yeah, why not? That sounds great. And they did, and got it to us way sooner than we thought. And then we also took the week off. So they've been super nice and haven't shown this graphic ahead of time. And so we figured we'd kick this episode off. We're kind of looking back at 2019 and what the most popular archetypes were across the entire year. And it's really cool. HS Replay, I'm assuming we'll put this on their Twitter live for everyone to see next year. But I don't know.
Next year?
Or not next year, tomorrow. I'm thinking, I still got some of those dad jokes. Got some of those dad jokes of see you next year and that crap caught in my head, which by the way, I'm so glad no one's saying that to me anymore, but clearly the damage is done.
Yeah.
But this has been really interesting to look at. Archetype popularity in 2019. If nothing else, because obviously my memory for what happened at the beginning of 2019 is a lot foggier than the end of it, because we were just there. It reminded me how damn popular Priest was when we kicked the door open to 2019 last year. There was a lot of clone Priest going on. And then also, if the other most obvious thing that didn't really stick in my brain, because if you talked to me about 2019, I would have been like, Warrior Shaman. It was the year of Warrior Shaman. Was Hunter. Hunter has been extremely popular across basically the entire year.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. It's almost like I forgot, but we had the tail end of Rexar, the Death Knight, and then Hunter kind of fell off really quickly with the rotation. But then, see, there you go. There, Hunter just boom, gone.
Yeah, with Rise of Shadows, Tempo Rogue just rocketed the hell up.
Yeah, and then everyone was like, oh, wait, guys, do you remember Hunter? Hunter's not bad. And they kind of stayed near the top of our archetypes all the way through 2019. And it's so funny because, I mean, there was some areas before Rise of Shadows where people were a little bit sick and tired of the whole build a beast Rexar thing. But at least they felt that there was still some skill to choosing what beasts you were going to get. So, no one ever really complained about Hunter the way that we saw people complain about Rogue and Bomb Warrior and even Conjurer Mage. And seeing how much Hunter we had consistently through 2019, I don't understand really what it was about Hunter over the entire course of the year that made everybody just not really complain about it and just be generally okay.
Well, the statistics that HS Replay sent over to us is it's specifically archetype popularity, not necessarily archetype win rate. And there is correlation between the two. But Hunter, and specifically Mech Hunter, which granted wasn't the most popular hunter like at all times. Mid-range Hunter fought for that, and Secret Hunter fought for that as well. But Mech Hunter was kind of stayed a staple throughout the majority of the year. And I think if you're talking popularity, a lot of that comes down to the fact that Mech Hunter really hasn't changed. So if you're a budget player, a returning player on a budget, a new player that has nothing to go off of, but you want to win, Mech Hunter was probably a really safe bet.
And I just want to talk a little bit about like what's kind of going on in the graph right now, just a little bit before Saviors of Uldum. But just the idea that like you can really see when Hearthstone Grandmasters is going on, particularly during season 1, because we had specialists. And so that part of the graph, like you can really see those few decks that people were playing, like those few classes that people were playing, really rotating through those top kind of 3 spots, because that's just all people were seeing. And then as we get further on into the year, you start to see more archetypes moving through the top like 5 and 6 spots, because you start to see people bringing the Shielded Conquest lineups and the popularity of what, the Grandmasters are practicing on Twitch, as well as their weekly matches, because they were having to bring 4 decks instead of 1. The archetypes were just all over the place, and things were actually rotating through on ladder to mirror what was going on in esports. And it made the ladder in those portions feel a lot better than when we were in season 1 Grandmasters with specialists. And it was the kind of thing that I really I knew that, but to actually see it reflected in the data and just watch those 3 classes kind of cycle through as the Grandmaster season went on was so interesting to me.
Yeah. It was really cool to see all of that. But again, I kept coming back to Priest and Hunter being like, I totally forgot about you, because it was just like Evolve and Shaman after Doom in the Tomb just eclipsed everything. For crying out loud, when was the last time you heard me complain about Warrior? Do you remember? There was probably a good 4 to 5 months where that's the only thing I wanted to do on this show. It should have been just called the Angry Warrior Hater, because that's how I felt. And yet I haven't thought about it for months now, because of Evolve, Shaman kicked in, and there we go. So and that's Shaman is really interesting, because most of the classes, because obviously this is an archetype, this is archetypes, it's not just straight up classes, so it kind of gets a little bit lost. But if you do look at even right now, we're looking at Hunter, and we're kind of hovering at 2 Hunter decks that are in the top 3. Even then, we were less than 20% of the total archetype popularity on the ladder. And this was made up of Hunters. And this is beginning of the year. Yeah. But throughout the entire year, even when a class in total was super oppressive and there were possibly multiple archetypes, and, you were queuing in all the time against the same classes and things, it was still only around the 20% mark until we hit, like Garrett, you mentioned the Doom in the Tomb event. Then we end up with Shamans on top and a huge portion of the meta. And they're over 30% on the back half of 2019. And it stayed there for the whole duration of the event, right? Because of the Evolve problem. So, there was just, and then obviously we jump into the new expansion, we get Descent of Dragons, and we end up with Galakrond Shaman, which was ridiculously powerful. So we kind of went from Shaman domination into Shaman domination, even after an expansion release. And and that's very, very clearly reflected. And I think it's why people didn't have a whole lot of patience for Galakrond Shaman, and why they went in and changed things so quickly is because, we just had a couple of months of Shaman. People were ready for a change. The other way you could say it is we were right, because that's exactly what we said was the reason.
But now there was
data. Such an outcry. Yes, exactly. And frankly, Galakrond Shaman, that got nipped very quickly. That didn't last nearly as long as Evolve did.
Yeah, I think we can thank the Christmas holidays for that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Evolve was a weird thing. We talked a lot about it, I think, on the last episode, which, looking kind of back at 2019, truly believe 2019 was the best year Hearthstone ever had. If you're a player of Hearthstone, I think if you're a watcher, if you're an esports fan, it was a little rocky. But I think if you just play Hearthstone, like the reason it's out there for you to actually play the game, not to just have hot takes about esports, it was an incredible year. And Evolve just cannibalizing the meta was this very kind of, to me, it was an exception to what I saw as a really stellar year. Because even before that we had, and the chart showed that, like, at a certain point when we got to the Boomsday event, you saw Mage just shoot the hell up to the top, and then it drops right back down post the nerf of Luna's Pocket Galaxy. And I look at Luna's Pocket Galaxy as I do kind of the Evolve event. It's just that Luna's got nipped a lot quicker than Evolve did. Evolve didn't. It was when the event was over, then that's when we finally didn't have to worry about Evolve anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's just because, I think Luna's Pocket Galaxy got changed because it was going to remain in the meta, whereas Evolve had already rotated to Wild, so that was an event-only thing. But Pocket Galaxy was going to remain up until the next rotation, which will be coming with our next expansion sometime in the spring. So I think that's why they were more eager to change things that were actually going to be sticking around in the standard meta instead of the event things. Now, whether that was the right choice or not, obviously we don't think it was the right choice, but I think it's the choice that they made. So one thing that I did notice, another thing I did notice in terms of just class variation and stuff, is that we didn't see very much Druid and very much Warlock at all. Now, Warlocks are kind of making a resurgence because the Galakrond Zoo deck right now is very popular and very good. But Druids have been in kind of a bad spot for all the way through 2019, which, again, I feel like I was seeing people play Druid, but that must have just been me remembering back to like the Spreading Plague token Druid armor shenanigans of 2018.
It was that far back because token Druid stayed on the archetype popularity chart for most of the year, if I recall. I think maybe it dropped off. Oh no, it was replaced with Quest Druid, kind of around Saviors of Uldum, and then it went up and down and up and down. But that's I don't know. But
even then, I mean, like Druids were really, really far down the list. Like they never made it all the way up to the top.
Around patch 1504, Quest Druid was second place in popularity. For the majority of that patch, and Token Druid kind of came and went. It's a weird thing. I don't really know why Druid wasn't as consistent across all of 2019 as Hunter was, because my brain goes, well, Druid had multiple types. They had the Quest variant, they had the Token variant. We were trying variations of that, and we were even still trying to make Malagos Druid work at one point. But Hunter has had essentially 3 archetypes for a vast majority of the past year, right? And they were in the top 10 almost that entire chart that HS Replay sent over to us. So I don't really know what the difference is there. Again, I want to think that for Death Rattle Hunter, at least, it's because the deck didn't really change, but that deck did fall out of the top 10. So I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, 15.0. I'm literally rewatching it right now. Like, honestly, it's mesmerizing. I can't like stop.
yeah.
I think it's because Druid. I think it's because it's brown, so it kind of like. I don't know why, but I was
avoid
like,
the poop color, Jocelyn. Is that what you're trying to tell me? That just because it's poop color, you think it's not on the chart?
I was gonna say, I was like, I for some reason have like orange in my head for like Druid, and the brown really blends into the background.
Yeah. Honestly, in the third quarter of 2019, Druid had pretty good representation.
Quest Druid was doing well.
Yeah,
and Malagos too.
Yeah, Quest and Malagos Druid had really good representation in popularity, both being in the top 10 for the majority of the third quarter. But then Descent of Dragons hits, and Druid just was nowhere to be found, and they were nowhere to be found really for the first portion of last year either. So, but it's, I don't know. There was that's more in my memory from just before Descent of Dragons, because I remember there was just a lot of passion surrounding Druid. It felt like to me, specifically Quest Druid. and I feel like we heard from Druid players a lot that were really excited about the class because right before that they weren't particularly popular. The token Druid was still out there, but it wasn't making any waves. So now here we are in the Face Hunter meta.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
2019 is with Face Hunter having a massive popularity. But it's gonna be interesting. We'll have some stuff to talk about after the break in terms of what the future of the Hearthstone meta might look like. But in the meantime, before we get into that, thanks again to HS Replay for sending that over. Make sure you go over to hsreplay.net, check them out. Awesome statistics, more statistics than you could really ever hope to make sense of. And we'll be referencing them again when we talk about Battlegrounds today. But before we move into this week's Hearthstone news, I want to thank those of you supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. It's a new year where the holidays are over. So now I don't feel as weird about asking you to, take $1, maybe take $2. Head on over to patreon.com/TAC. You like Hearthstone podcast? You like this Hearthstone podcast? Of course you do. I know it. We're your favorite Hearthstone podcast. Don't you want to, support your favorite Hearthstone podcast? Head on over to patreon.com/TAC. And you're going to get access to things like the Discord server. You're going to get an ad-free RSS feed, which you can plug into your podcatcher, and you're going to get the podcast like you always do. There just won't be ads in it. And as always, we want to thank some of our most recent patrons. So let's thank Anthony, a.k.a. How do I pronounce this? You know this person. Takamikazooch?
Takamikazooch.
So it's not take my kazooch.
No, it's not. It's not. Although I would like to know what a kazooch is.
It's like a kazoo, but it's a higher pitch.
Okay.
It's a higher pitch kazoo. So you could do harmonies with your regular kazoo owning brethren. You could also, we'd also like to thank Joshua Apodaca and the Holy Dunsparce, which I'm sorry, I didn't say that. The Holy Dunsparce. I want to say it like a paladin. That's how I want to say it. Yep. So go check it out, patreon.com/TAC. It's the best way to support the program. Get access to the Discord server, get some other perks like an ad-free feed. And with that in mind, we do have a sponsor to thank today, and that sponsor is MeUndies. Are you ready, Jocelyn, to talk about our underwear publicly for the first time in a new year?
Oh, it's such a great way to kick off the new year, Garrett. I mean, oh man, I actually gave a lot of MeUndies as Christmas presents, and I've been hearing nothing but good things. And I told my mom, I told my brother's girlfriend, I'm like, you guys are going to love this. Like, you're never going to wear anything else, because I don't. It's all I wear when I'm at home and when I'm at work now. Except not my lounge pants. Those are MeUndies. You
don't wear clothes on top of the MeUndies at work? Because that's...
I do. Yeah, no one knows. MeUndies is me secret.
Oh, my Lord. It's not a very big secret if you're on a podcast with an audience in the tens of thousands.
It's very true.
Talking about your undies. So... yeah, I'm a big fan too. Today was the coldest day of the Florida winter so far, which is hilarious. I'm talking to someone in Toronto about the coldest day in a Florida winter, but it was pretty chilly by Florida standards. I woke up to mid 40s, which is very cold for here. And
oh my God, it's warmer than that here.
Wow. Well, I mean, that is now no longer the case. But I spent the first half of my damn day in my Stormtroopers MeUndies lounge pants because they're so damn comfortable, and I was wearing MeUndies underwear underneath that because I just wanted to feel just comforted in the most soft micromodal fabric on God's green earth. And that's exactly what MeUndies gives me, and a really fun Stormtrooper print to boot, because clearly I didn't have enough Star Wars over December with The Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker. But whatever the case is, you should go check them out. You can get some of the most comfortable underwear you've ever worn, lounge pants, slippers. They've got all kinds of stuff over there at MeUndies.com/TAC. And if you go to MeUndies.com/TAC, you're going to get 15% off your first pair, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Can't imagine why you would send it back. Maybe it's too soft and too comfortable for you. I don't know. Maybe you've got a thing for itchy underpants, but go check them out. Get 15% off your first pair. MeUndies.com/TAC. And with that in mind, let's move into this week's Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
Iksar is hitting the balance changes, Joss. He is not on there saying, we're going to take some time to look at how this shakes out. He's actually on Twitter telling us what's on the chopping block.
Yeah, and I think it's things that everyone who's been playing a lot of Hearthstone since the expansion launched was kind of expecting. So he basically said Galakrond decks are looking at changes to Galakrond across the board. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the neutral Galakrond cards get looked at, but Galakrond decks are basically on the chopping block, as well as Death Rattle Rogue, which is something that we talked about maybe getting hit in the first round of balance changes from this patch, but they didn't. Or sorry, not patch, this expansion. And then Pirate Warrior as well. So this is what he's actually been specifically talking about on Twitter, although didn't say anything about Face Hunter, Res Priest, or Highlander Mage. So those are kind of my guesses for where the meta might go after this, because they're pretty popular now. They're good decks, and without the kind of Galakrond and Death Rattle Rogue stuff to go up against, I can see them doing really well. They're kind of like, they're okay right now, but that's because everything with Galakrond in it is just so freaking powerful that some of these other decks just can't keep up. So
yeah,
I think it's probably good overall, although I am a little bit surprised that we're seeing Galakrond nerfs in Descent of Dragons, because I would expect that they would want their kind of, I don't want to say like expansion gimmick, but you know, the new hotness that's come with, I don't know why new hotness is better than gimmick in my head, but apparently it is. Anyways, the new hotness of the expansion obviously is the Galakrond stuff. And so I'm a little bit surprised that they would be looking at nerfing it, because I would think that they would want people to be playing with whatever the cool new thing is. So it's a little bit interesting that they're actually targeting it when, you know, there isn't necessarily one specific Galakrond deck that's overpowered, like we saw with Shaman, and that got nerfed within, you know, 8 or 10 days of the expansion launching. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Galakrond is being targeted. I would have thought maybe, you know, they let us play with the cards now. They've got, you know, new cards coming out with the adventure, the single player stuff in a little while. And then, you know, maybe target Galakrond at the rotation or something in the spring. But yeah, they're just like, no, you guys don't seem to be having fun. So balance patch, let's go.
Yeah, I was, when I first saw like him mention Galakrond decks, that just makes your brain immediately go to, oh, they're coming for the neutrals, right? Because I don't think they're going to go Galakrond by Galakrond nerfing them.
Well, what they might do is change how either he works or how Invoke works in general. So maybe,
That
you know,
unprecedented.
It totally would be. But yeah, when they're talking about looking at Galakrond decks, that makes me think like across the board, all the Galakronds. And then so across the board, what do all the Galakronds have in common? They have their Battlecry in common. So maybe we're going to see maybe a change to that weapon. Instead of being a 5-2, maybe it'll be a 4-2 or a 3-2 or something. Maybe a change to the Battlecry. I don't, like you said, I don't think they're going to go like Galakrond to Galakrond and change what they do. But maybe, yeah, I don't even know. There's so much to those heroes that, I mean, you've got their hero power that you could potentially mess with. You've got the way that Invoke works that you could possibly mess with. And then you have the actual battle cry, the thing that they do when you play them. So, I mean, obviously the first one that comes to mind is obviously the Shaman one, because you've got those rushing 8/8s that always feel crazy. But I mean, you've also got like the warriors. The warriors, to me, the problem with the warrior isn't necessarily the battle cry that they get, although those, especially if that 4/4 buff falls on the Scion of Ruin, you're just like, okay, I'm done. Like, but with the warrior, it feels like the problem is more in the invoke part of it. And you could even argue that the invoke part is kind of the problem on the shaman end too, because those rushing 2/1s are so powerful to help keep control of the board. So, I mean, maybe it's the invoke part that needs to change. I don't know. But yeah, I can see things being changed across all the decks, probably the neutrals, because that's just the easiest way to impact all the Galakronds, right?
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't adversely affect the Galakrond Zoo Warlock that is finally finding a foothold that is climbing to, at least at the moment, if you go over to the meta page on something like HS Replay, nipping at the heels of Pirate Warrior.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Warlock. They've had a rough time. And frankly, it's been long enough, in my opinion, since Zoo has really had a strong win rate and some strong matchups. That being said, in most popular versions, I do believe Shield of Galakrond is basically the only neutral invoke card that is being run, and I feel like, you know, even if
there's the rushy dude, the 4-mana 2/2 that invokes.
Yeah, but there are versions of the Zoo deck that do not run that card.
Oh, the Zoo deck specifically.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, my gut went, oh God, Zoo is just finding it. It's having a day. Let's not ruin it. But then I actually thought about it for a second. I'm like, well, no, actually, the most popular version that's running around right now, the only invoke neutral is Shield of Galakrond. I think it'd be hard to adjust that card and really make it that big of a deal for Warlock specifically. Because they're getting the imps out, right? The 1/1s, like it's not the rushers. They're not adding a bunch of damage to the board as a Pirate Warrior. I think they're going to be okay, is what I'm saying. So I'm actually I'm kind of hopeful. I'm the way my brain is running away with this. I don't hate the idea of going after the invoke neutrals, but we'll time will tell. We maybe putting the cart before the horse. Maybe you're right. Maybe the crazier thing might happen. Maybe they're gonna go for, we're changing how invoke works. That would be crazy.
That would be, yeah. I mean, like you said, it would be completely unprecedented. And I mean, if they change how the entire keyword works, I mean, do they then, give like dust refunds on all the invoke cards? I mean, they might. Who knows? But yeah, I think invoke itself in some cases is the problem.
Yeah, we all got the Galakronds for free, so.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly all they want is money, so they're just going to change Galakrond so they don't give us any dust. That's how it's going to work.
Obviously.
I've been on Reddit once, and that's what I believe. But it'll be interesting, sure. I'm mildly concerned for a future with even more Res Priest, just because I'm a little burnt out with those guys, a little bit. And it's not just because I looked at 2019 and was reminded about how many damn priests I ran up against in the first half of the year and still ran into over the entire year, here and there.
Yeah, I think so. I was playing near the end of last season. I was playing some Res Priest, and I mean, they are counterable, especially with some of the mage decks, obviously because of polymorph. I mean, I had like warriors playing Leroys and then just like whirlwinding to kill the whelps to put them in my res pool. Like, and you can counter the counter by, like waiting to use your res effects until much, much later so that there's a less of a chance for you to get those 1/1s. But I mean, it just, it's not impossible to play against. But yeah, when they draw their deck in the right order, you're just like, how am I even supposed to do this? Like, even as something that is a super aggressive deck, like even like a face hunter, sometimes you're just like, man, I do all this damage, and you're just like, heal. Because, most of them have the quest. So it's gross sometimes, the amount of healing that they can do. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind Res Priest. I want Priest to be in a place where they have something playable that isn't the combo. So I'm okay with Res Priest being Res Priest for now. But yeah, if it stays around particularly after we get the new cards with the adventure or the single player, I think are they still calling it an adventure? Anyways, once we get the new infusion of cards, then if it's still sticking around and that's the way to play Priest, then, maybe I'll be calling for nerfs or buffs or something at that point. But I think for right now, it's still okay. It's better than combo. As long as the way to play Priest isn't combo, or obviously combo is always going to be playable, but as long as it's not the only way to play things, then I think I'm okay with it.
I just had this weird kind of gut punch moment when I realized that Convincing Infiltrator has only been in since Rise of Shadows. I could have sworn that card had been around longer. It's this weird thing. It's all logic aside, I'm just very sick of that card. It's the target of my ire right now.
Yep.
But it's a feeling thing for sure. So I'm willing to let this one lie for now. You know, if Res Priest is already doing very, very well in the win rates, but you know, if that's the future, I'll give it. Whatever. I'm just gonna play more Battlegrounds. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Well, speaking of Battlegrounds, there's some balance coming in there too. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but new cards, new heroes, and balance patches coming for the next 2 to 3 months, according to Iksar. So yeah, it looks like they're keeping up the pace. I thought maybe that this was the start of the beta, and so they were kind of like shaking things out once they get like basically the community's hands on it. But it seems like they're just like, no, this is the pace we're going to be updating this thing, which I think is very good because in this genre, you need that kind of a pace.
Absolutely. These types of games kind of live or die with that iteration cycle, because if it stays the same for too long, you just see the same scenarios over and over again, even with the added randomness of the hero that you're piloting in Battlegrounds. You can still get into ruts of, I've been here before. I know this is how this is going to go. You know, short of random attacks and whatnot, you need to keep it fresh. So I have I honestly enjoyed the holiday break where we didn't have changes come through. That being said, next week, I would like to see a change next week. Let's switch it up a little bit. I feel like I figured it out. I feel like the community has figured it out. Let's get there. We'll talk about this more in our Battleground segment coming up next. And by the way, there's no time frame for any of this stuff. Team just got back, obviously, just like most of us did, into a working state of mind, even if we had to go back to work even before this week. Yeah.
This is kind of like the unofficial, okay, everybody's back to normal week.
Yes. Yeah. I would imagine a lot of this stuff has already been, just because we're hearing about it from Iksar now, it doesn't mean they're starting work on this now, right? I bet these have been discussions for a while now. I bet they have some ideas about the directions that they're going to be heading, and they're probably just finalizing the changes that they want to make, be it for Battlegrounds or constructed Hearthstone. So yeah. In moving over into the esports side of Hearthstone, Amnesiac has quit. He has quit Hearthstone
completely, and like not just not wanting to play Grandmasters. Like after 5 years of competitive Hearthstone, Amnesiac is done. He's decided that he doesn't want to play the game anymore. He wants to move on to new challenges. So he's basically just said, "I'm not participating in Grandmaster Season 3." Or playing the game at all going forward, which, I mean, when he started, I think he was like 15 or 16, maybe younger, actually, now that I could come to think of it. So, I mean, it was definitely took up a whole lot of his time. Like I remember when they would have interviews with him really early on. He was talking about balancing like Hearthstone with school, with sports as well, because he was really athletic, and you know, trying to balance all that stuff when you're in your mid-teens and then kind of moving into like college years and stuff. Like, I'm not surprised that he's kind of ready to move on. He has, I mean, outside of like winning a world championship, he's basically done everything else, right? Like he was in Grandmasters, he won a dream hack, like he did make it to a world championship, didn't win, but you know, like he's kind of ticked all the major boxes. So at this point in his life, I mean, I don't blame him for deciding to refocus at all. So kind of sad, and yet another shakeup in Grandmasters. I don't know who's going to be taking his spot, but yeah, we're going to talk a little bit later on in the show about just plans for esports in 2020 in general, which was just published about 12 hours ago. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but yeah. Grandmasters Season 3, he's out. So that opens up another spot in NA.
A lot of soul searching, especially in esports at the end of basically every year. Every esport I have ever followed, there is things like this happen. Although you used to be like when I was following heroes really closely, like team switching, or even in single player esports like StarCraft, there's still teams. And I remember every winter break, it was like, well, okay, well, who's leaving this team and going to what team, and what team are they going to? Sometimes new teams pop up, but in this case, Amnesiac is just retiring from Hearthstone. So.
Which is, it's actually really interesting that you bring that up about, you know, teams and stuff, because I feel like Hearthstone is one of the ones where teams, not that they don't come into play, but you don't see the shuffle in Hearthstone nearly as much as other teams, particularly esports that are actually involved with like teams. You got Rocket League, your teams of 3. You've got your, MOBAs teams of 5. Like where there's team dynamics in play, it seems like players shift around between different teams all the time. But like in Hearthstone, you've got some of these guys that have been competitively on the same team for, 4 and 5 and 6 years. So it's always kind of a little bit of a shock when people are moving around. And yeah, this was definitely not one that I saw coming. Amnesiac has always taken the game really seriously and taken his role in the community really seriously, even if that was, to be, oh man, what's the wrestling term? And the bad guy.
Heel?
Yeah, okay, there you go. I was like, I know that there's a word for this. But yeah,
sure, like, definitely fit into that
a little
role
antagonistic. Yes,
for a portion of his career, certainly. I don't think that's an unfair picture to paint. But you're right. He's been I think he was aware of his position in the community, and I think he really tried to cultivate that image, and he did really well for it. So it's kind of sad to see him go. I have been searching for a player as memorable as Idra was in the beginning of StarCraft 2's esports journey, and honestly, Amnesiac is probably the closest, and that is probably one of those glowing accolades that I can send in the direction of anyone who has ever played an esport. So I'm gonna miss him for sure.
Chat room saying that now too. Hearthstone's Idra.
Yeah, Zobot. Oh, Zobot knows what I'm talking about. Yes, Wings of Liberty till I die, except for like 17 bunker changes every 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm gonna miss Amnesiac though. He's been a regular fixture for so freaking long at this point. I mean, we've gotten to watch him grow up. It's like Amnesiac is our antagonistic version, if you've watched Hearthstone, of like watching Harry Potter and all those kids grow up, or Game of Thrones with less violence. So, whatever the case is. Another really interesting thing came out of Iksar's Twitter. It wasn't just giving us...
I feel like Iksar was like super bored over the holidays because like he went and did all this Photoshop work himself. He's like, oh, I'm just going to put this out there.
Yeah.
How hard can Photoshop be?
Did he do the Photoshop himself?
Yeah.
Seriously?
He took the image from 2014 and did the Photoshop. You can actually see up near the 6%. You can see some of the scribbles where he's
that's
gotten
awesome.
rid of the old percentage. Yeah.
I'm going to say he did a pretty damn good job. Now that you mentioned, I do see it. Iksar, my boy, hit me up, man. I am happy to help you with some Photoshop. But yeah, basically, I guess you could say officially, because Iksar is on the development team, but unofficially created our first look at standard rank distribution since 2014. Jocelyn, the last time we got to see standard ranked distribution, you were still a Moffat, and I wasn't even married yet.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
It's been a spell. It has been a spell for sure. So back in 2014, they posted the standard rank distribution, which showed ranks 5 through 1 being essentially the top 2% and Legend being the top 0.5%. Legend has shrunk in terms of its representation of the entire player base to a 0.3% of the player base, and 1 through 5 has risen to cover about 6%. They're like the top 6% of all players in Hearthstone if you rank 5 through 1. But that makes sense. Back in 2014, we didn't have ranked floors.
And everyone got reset so far back, because now we're only getting reset for ranks, right? In 2014, we were getting reset. So it's like each rank you earned you like 1 star or something. So you would have legend rank players getting reset all the way back to like rank 16 and 17. So there were like, at the start of every season, there were no like rank 12 players. Everybody had to work their way up from below 15. And so I mean, it does make a lot of sense that because we're not getting set back as far, and because we have rank floors throughout the course of our climb, that obviously there would be more people a little bit higher up. What I would really be interested to see is what the graph looks like at each rank floor. So say like, you've got, 19% between 15 and 10, but like of that 19% of the player base, how much is actually at rank 15 versus how much is at the top at, rank 11, basically before the next floor. Because I imagine it looks like this, like big, huge amount of people at like 15, and then it just gets skinnier and skinnier and skinnier and skinnier.
You're describing a pyramid. It's a pyramid.
Kind of a pyramid, yeah.
Or a pile. It's a pile. Yeah. It's an anecdote we hear really often from our listeners. So often folks write in or tweet at us or whatever, however you decide to get in touch with us, and you're like, hey, so-and-so, every month I try to get to rank 10, or every month I try to get to rank 15, or every month I try to get to rank 5. Everyone has their own personal goals for where they like to end their Hearthstone season. We also hear from a ton of folks who are just like, I get my wins, and then it's just, I'm just trying to get dust and cards wherever I can get them, whether it's through Arena, through Brawl, or whatever. But it makes sense, and I think this is cool now, and I would like them to keep this updated, keep this coming. Now, it is funny that it hasn't changed that much. Right, so 5 through 1 used to be 2% of the top 2% of the player base. Now it's the top 6%. 10 through 5 used to be 5.5%. Now it's 12%. So a significantly larger jump there. So if anything, 10 through 5 has gotten more populated. Where whereas so has 15 through 10.
Well, 10 through 1, really, yeah,
that's a good way to put it. So it's cool. I love seeing these types of things. I would like to see it more often, and I think it's really cool that Iksar let us know about that. So keep it coming, Iksar. You're doing the stats work. I almost said the Lord's work. I'm like, no, it's Hearthstone.
The innkeeper's work.
You're doing the innkeeper's work, Iksar. There you go. Thank you, Joss.
You're welcome.
Nice. Yes, and. Anyways, before we get into our Battlegrounds segment, we have one more sponsor to thank today, and that is HelloFresh. You can check out their menu over at HelloFresh.com/TAC10 and use the code TAC10 at checkout. I'll tell you why in just a moment. But Joss, we're doing the show at night now.
We are.
That means I on Tuesdays I have to have a quick and yet delicious and well-made way to get food in my system before the Angry Chicken. It has to be done so that we can be ready to go at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And HelloFresh.
It's healthy because I'll admit tonight I had Wendy's. And I'm regretting it. I am regretting it so hard, man. I wish I had a HelloFresh box tonight because I feel gross.
I bet it feels like the e-brake has been pulled. I'm particularly thankful for HelloFresh sponsoring our show this week because I need them. They let me do this. They help me break out of my dinner rut because HelloFresh has 22 plus seasonal chef curated recipes each week, not just total, each week. They also help cut out meal planning and prepping. I don't need to worry about it as much. So you can enjoy cooking. You can get to the dinner table in just about 30 minutes or even 20 minutes with their quick recipe options. I've been keeping an eye out for those now that I know I have a Tuesday night recording. There's something for everyone also. They've got low calorie, vegetarian, and family friendly recipe options. And their pre-portioned ingredients mean there's less prep for you and less food waste. To follow this, you can easily change your delivery days or food preferences. You can even skip a week if you're traveling. I take advantage of that pretty often because I have to travel for work sometimes. So go over to HelloFresh.com/TAC10 and use the code TAC10 during HelloFresh's New Year's sale. You're going to get yourself 10 free meals, including shipping. Again, that's 10 free meals from HelloFresh when you go to HelloFresh.com/TAC10 and enter the code TAC10. Thank them for their support. And now, let's get into this week's Battlegrounds talk.
Have a good battle, friend.
Oh, I should start this. We should start the show with that because it just makes me want to jump up and down.
It's such a good bumper, man.
I want a pogo dance, Joss. I want a pogo dance. Anyways, we've got some more stats. We've got hints from Iksar that balance will be coming to Battlegrounds, and frankly, the the whole nugget of the conversation we're about to have came from you, Joss, because you were like, hey, Garrett, who do you think needs to be nerfed and who do you think needs to be buffed? I'm like, oh, Joss, I could do a whole episode on this conversation. I really could.
Well, yeah, like I saw Iksar's tweets and I was going through like all the replies and stuff like that. And he was directly talking about hero balance coming to Battlegrounds. And I was like, I wonder if Garrett wants to talk about this. Stupid question. Of course, Garrett wants to talk about this. So yeah, there is balance coming soon, TM, as always with Blizzard, but that seems to be, when it comes to Battlegrounds, much sooner than we think. So I mean, we could be getting hero balance literally next week. So yeah, Garrett, enlighten me. Who needs to be changed? All
right, well, real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to HSA Play one more time because they did send over their top 10. I believe they tweeted this out. If they didn't, I missed it, and I'm glad that they actually sent it to me directly. But it's the top 10 Battlegrounds top heroes by win rate. They showed both how often this hero has hit first place, how often they hit top 4, and their pick rate. And at the top of this list, because it actually prioritizes how many times they've gotten first place, is Rafam. Getting first place 20.4% of the time. And now if that doesn't tell you or paint a picture for how difficult it is to hit first place, then I don't know what will. Because underneath Rafam is Edwin at 16.4%, Nefarian under Edwin at 16.2%, Yogg at 15.5%, and then it's pretty close from there on out. I am actually more interested in the top 4, though, Jocelyn, because that's more about consistency. Right. And Daryl takes that home with a 61.1% win rate in the top 4. Mm-hmm. And Yogg-Saron coming in just underneath Daryl.
I really like Daryl. Daryl's always been what I thought to be one of the most fun. But I actually watched Educated Collins stream this weekend, and I was like, wow, I do not know how to play this game, because his Daryl dancing plays were absolutely insane. It's like I couldn't even follow it, but it seemed like he had infinity coins and was just like, I'm going to do this and this and this and sell this and dance this and dance this, dance. Bam, a 2020. I was like, what?
Dance Revolution.
Yeah. Oh my God. He was so freaking good. If you guys aren't following Educated Collins, I don't know why you aren't. Just go now. What are you doing? But yeah, he's so good at the game, and watching him play Daryl was eye-opening. And I'm not surprised that Daryl is consistent, because he's really fun to play and he has a really strong power. And if you know what you're doing with him, then I can see how you could consistently hit top 4.
I had my mind blown, this is an aside, little anecdote, by Arda from ESPN Esports, because Arda stayed at tier 1 for an entire game and damn near won with Demon G's.
Wow.
So there's still some crazy things being figured out in Battlegrounds. By the way, Arda, we need to get you on the show.
Yes.
He and I have been we've been duoing up for some Battlegrounds games lately. And one of us every time gets really unlucky and the other one gets really lucky. We've yet to have a game where we both kind of like did okay all the way through.
Oh, but, where we both got lucky? I was like, oh, Garrett, I don't need to hear about
what
this.
I meant, Jocelyn, for crying out loud. Come on.
Oh, you missed me over the holidays. Admit it.
But the holidays are where I get to hang out with like old friends, and I realize they're so much worse than you've ever been in terms of raunchy humor. So.
Well, I try to keep myself PG most of the time for this show.
Wow. Well, you're doing a bad job. Just
I know. Terrible.
You do a really good job at a lot of things. You're failing miserably at keeping your humor PG. So.
One thing I've got to say I was surprised about was how high the fact that Akazamzarak even made this list, and the fact that he is like 55% of top 4. Like, what? He has a very, very low pick rate, though. I will say, like, I never see him, and yeah, I'm surprised that he does as well as he does.
Well, they pruned his secrets, which I think just made them better. Even though they did nerf, make it less likely for you to be able to get ice block more than twice in a row, but it can still happen. And every time I play against one, I feel like it happens every damn time. But when I'm playing as Akazamzarak, it never happens. So I like ice block alone, like a lot of times with an Akazamzarak, I feel like ice block alone by the time in an average game, by the time that ice block is going to get popped, it's enough to damn near get you to the top 4. Because I feel like in an average game, and I have no stats basis off of just my own personal playing, but in an average game, the top 4 kind of happens damn near simultaneously. Usually,
it's true. Yeah.
There's a lot of stragglers. It doesn't always happen for sure, but I don't know. In a lot of games, a lot of my Samsar games are I get 4th place, and it's on the back of an ice block. So I can understand that. That being said, his first place is basically tied with Daryl and Elise and AFK. And
AFK. I was going to say AFK is probably the next biggest surprise for me on this list. The fact that she's so low. Like, she was so good out the gate. And now that they've changed her to have the 3s, like, it just, I guess, has nerfed her enough that she's no longer up there. And I don't know if it's that like it was a nerf to her, or if Rafam was just so powerful when he came in. But yeah, whatever change they did, she's dropped off quite a lot. Still gets picked all the time. Still gets picked 60% of the time. But
yeah, the game Battlegrounds has gotten extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
And I may be putting too much weight on this, but I think a lot of this you can just point to Amalgam going away. With Amalgam in the game, a lot of us, it didn't matter because we weren't chasing triple Amalgams. We just wanted one, and then suddenly greedy strategies were the way to play. So we were all playing greedy strategies because we were all chasing battle cries. With Amalgam gone, the value of a Battlecry minion has kind of just fallen out. If this was like the stock market, if this is mad money, I'd be like, sell it all. It's junk. What are you doing? You're going to be dead before your battle cries are actually worth anything. And that's a little over the top. You can still make it work but you need to be careful, and you need to be paying more attention to the left side of that bar than you ever have before. See the streaks that people are going on. Pay attention to what minions people are gathering in earlier than ever, by the way, because are they getting kaboom bots? Oh man, you might just die if they get too many of those. Especially if they come across a Baron now. Like, I'm more terrified of Baron than I've ever been.
Yes, people are coming around on death rattles. I love it.
Yes.
Death rattles were always my favorite way to play.
Yeah. So I think AFK is still good. Obviously, she cracked the top 10 according to HS Replay. And there's a lot hanging on tier 3, and because AFK gets to just wait until turn 3 and then just pick 2 tier 3 minions, you have a pretty high chance of finding either a Cobalt or the 4/4 demon. I always forget the name of. I'm just gonna
Floating Watcher.
Floating Watcher. Thank you, Jocelyn. Those 2 minions are really large linchpins of Battlegrounds right now. Those are like highly sought after minions, and they both are in tier 3. So AFK has a high roll potential there. So it doesn't surprise me too much, but it also doesn't surprise me that AFK is at the bottom, is kind of closing out the top 10 because she's taking some damage and not getting to draft some of these stronger tier 1 death rattles that are doing some damage right now, or even some demons to go with the Floating Watcher if you find one. So whatever the case is, let's start off with who I think needs a nerf. And I was thinking about putting Rafam at the top of this list, but honestly, I think it might be Edwin.
Okay.
I think Edwin is just really consistent because you know how much
Edwin also seems to be on the rise. Like every single thing, like percentage of first place, percentage of top 4, and pick rate all across the board going up from HS Replay stats. So, I mean, especially where you see a hero with an uptick like that, you definitely should be paying attention.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, I'm with you on Daryl. I think Dancing Daryl is still one of the best heroes in the game. The potential of a Dancing Daryl when played correctly, when in the right hands, is terrifying.
Yeah.
But the truth is really hard to play correctly.
He is very hard to play. Yeah.
And there is a certain aspect of luck because you can find more token generators than you're really going to kind of make them dance. So all of those things in mind. And frankly, I think how difficult it is to pilot Daryl correctly, and the fact that Daryl's still in the top 10 is a testament to Daryl's power level. Yeah. But Edwin has a Daryl-like effect that isn't difficult to use really at all, and isn't randomized. Where Daryl's buffs are going are random, unless you've just got so many. Unless you buy out the whole tier. Exactly. Or you're doing freezing tricks and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. But Edwin, it's never random. It doesn't matter if you got lucky or if you didn't get lucky. That buff is going where you want it to go. And the other minion that's playing a really large role right now is Hydra. And Hydra is difficult to buff. A little more difficult than it used to be. And Edwin makes that uncertainty kind of just go away. So if you can find an early Hydra with Edwin, you're cooking with gas. So, I think Edwin goes at the top of my list for who needs a nerf. I think maybe the hero power should cost 2 or not give health stats. If we're going to get into some, like a little bit of theming here, it's called Sharpened Blades, not Temper Steel, Jocelyn. I don't know why it's making them healthier. It should just make them do more damage. Okay. So, and it's a theme we've seen with other heroes' hero powers, is that they've kind of removed the health buffs or nerfed the health buffs, or even outside of hero powers with like Lightfang Enforcer. There's a subtle amount of power in adding health alongside attack. But as we've seen, especially early on. Yeah. On the flip side is Queen Wag Toggle, where there's basically no power and only adding health. Yeah. She may have made my who needs a buff list, but I'm going to put Edwin at the top, because I think for the largest section of the player base, Edwin is the most powerful. Also, I put Yogg up here. And honestly, Edwin, Yogg, and Rafam. That's like my top 3 in order of who needs a nerf. And it's all about efficient hero powers. Because Yogg Saron, let me scroll down to him for the video audience to actually get him up on board. 2 mana to hire a random minion that's 2 mana, 2 gold. You know what I mean. Yes, yeah. 2 currency. It's a 1 gold discount, and you're getting a +1/+1 buff out of it. And again, like I said, the game's been getting aggressive over the holidays. And so that +1/+1 is worth a decent amount, and you're not spending as much gold along the way. Also, Yogg cracked the top 4 on HS Replay, doing very well with how often Yogg is placing first, and also how often Yogg is placing top 4, coming in 2nd place in top 4, second only to Daryl, and barely. Yeah. So Yogg is, some of my baddest beats over the holidays were against Yogg's, where I was just like, oh, how did you even? Yeah, sometimes it feels like they swing in for your entire health pool. And you're just like, man, how did that happen? I didn't even think you were supposed to be able to deal that much damage. Yeah. Well, they're just going to fill their board faster than everyone else, because they get a 1 gold discount on 1 minion per turn. So if nothing else, on top of the fact that they have more stats, more likely to survive, on top of the fact that they're going to have more minions, which means so on. It's a snowball effect, essentially. Yeah. And then I'm going to give Rafam 3rd place. I really thought about this. At the top of my list was Rafam. You remember when the last patch came out, I was like, it's over. Rafam is the top. Brand's gone. Yeah. I can't believe they didn't nerf Rafam. Also, Amalgam's gone. Curator's going to be busted. Rafam's going to be busted because he can still Curator's Amalgam. These are the only 2 in the game that can have Amalgams. Curator, not making my need to nerf list, I think, actually, because of everyone else isn't drafting battle cries, so it's a little risky if you're Curator to take the time to chase those buffs. It can still work. I've had some amazing games as Curator, but I've also had some 8th places as Curator. It's a little funky because of the speed at which everyone is drafting and putting together their compositions. So, but I still think Rafam is crazy powerful. 1 gold to essentially guarantee that you're going to have an extra minion in your hand next turn. If nothing else, it's an extra gold that you can bring with you to the following turn. So it's, and best case scenario, it helps you chase triples. Or you get that cobalt that someone didn't think to play around and sort it better in the attack orders so that it didn't die early. But I think Rafam is still up here. And then this is just my salt. I think Akazamzarak needs to get nerfed again. I am frankly...
I love that you have like Garrett's salt pick.
I am offended that Akazamzarak is in the top 10. I don't think he should be. He's the great Akazamzarak, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, there he is. Really, it should be impossible to get 2 ice blocks back to back. I don't think I understand that they made it less likely. I think they need to hard code it where you can't. You cannot get ice block 2 turns in a row. That's less.
I think that I think makes sense because I mean the way that ice block works, like it doesn't set you down to 1 health, right? It buys you a turn of no damage if you would take lethal damage. So that means you can preserve a whole lot more health if you're getting to the point of the game where people are chunking out, 15 to 20 health at a time, then, that's a big deal. So yeah, I think I'm there with you. I don't think that you should be able to, take 2 turns in a row off. Yeah, I think that's way too powerful.
Yeah, it's you're kind of a reverse AFK at that point. You're just like, I'm going to take 2 turns off and I'm not going to take damage during them.
Yeah, but I'm going to take 2 turns off at the end of the game, which means, that's really going to dictate the place that I finish in as opposed to AFK where, she can get beat out just by getting run over by those early like minion drafts out of 1 and 2. So
yeah. All right, let's as for who I think needs a buff, I'm going to start this off with Sir Finley. I don't have enough command of the English language to fully express how trash I think Sir Finley is.
All right. Well, and it's funny because we've basically said that ever since he was introduced, which was 2 hero patches ago. Yes.
Yeah, it's just bad, man. It's just a gold sink for a +1/+1 and it's not worth it. It is not worth it. Like, what do you mean I have to sell a minion and I have to keep spending gold? Whereas Edwin, what does Edwin ask of me? Well, buy minions. Well, I'm doing that already because I'm playing the game.
Yeah.
And then you have to spend 1 gold once to throw all of those +1/+1s on the target of your choice. Yeah, this is random on top of that. I can't even decide where it goes. I hate this hero power so much. I can't stand it.
Do you think if it was directed, would that be okay?
It would help, but it still would be butt compared to Edwin.
Yeah.
But that would certainly help. I mean, it's just kind of like salt in the wound of poor Sir Finley Mergleton, who I want to be good. He's like my favorite original Hearthstone character. I love Finley. So this one offends me on a personal level. It's also just bad. Queen Wagtoggle, I already kind of talked about it. I think Queen Wagtoggle needs a buff as well. I think Wax Warbrand, spending a gold to give a random friendly Mech Demon, Murloc, or Beast +1 health is just maybe the worst hero power in the game.
Wow.
Maybe.
So what should we do? Should we just
delete her? Just give up.
Which, to be fair, they might do. She might be one of the ones that goes out of the rotation while they figure her out and we get a new one coming in.
Yeah. Or make it 0 gold. Like you can do it once a turn, give something +1 health. Sure. Why not? Like, I think +1 health is pointless enough that it's okay if
making
it's free.
Free isn't going to break it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or honestly, give it the Mergleton treatment where at least it refreshes. Like, why can I only do this once? What?
Yeah.
It boggles my mind, this one. Overall, I think Battlegrounds is in a really good place. I think a lot of the heroes are pretty close, but boy, Queen Wagtoggle, this is like the auto pass every time.
Yeah.
Probably should have put her first as far as who I think needs a buff, honestly. Sylvanas is also on the list. This just doesn't work. Removing destroying a friendly minion, you don't get the gold back for it to give adjacent minions +1/+1. Like, at least you're getting more of a buff for your buck than Sir Finley. But I wanted this to be so much more interesting than it is. When I first saw it, and I don't know why I thought about this, because of course it doesn't work this way. But you know how they should fix this, and it will probably break the game? Make death rattles trigger off of her hero power. Like,
I honestly thought that's the way that it was going to work. And I know that technically it says remove a friendly minion, right? Not destroy or kill or whatever. But, you know, I assumed that, you know, when I remove a minion, you kill them, right? So I thought that this was the way that she was going to work anyways. And I feel like if you did do this, if you made it like kill a friendly minion and made the death rattle trigger, then maybe it can't be free. But I think you could figure out a mana cost for that. And I think that would work a little bit more intuitively and would be more interesting. You could get some really, really cool death rattles, like especially if you're looking at death rattles that like summon legendaries or summon, you know, minions of a certain tier. Like you could get some really cool things going on with Sylvanas with the hero power that triggered death rattles.
It would, I think it's honestly impossible for them to do it. Replicating Menace would give you a golden every time. Because it would summon 3 microbots. Rat Pack also, as long as you buffed it once, would give you a golden rat every time. So
yes, but again, like then you're getting into some really interesting strategies, and you could do some really cool stuff with it. Yeah, it would be, you know, instant triples, but maybe getting an instant triple is the way to go, because you have to, you know, first maybe replicating Menace would be the sticking point there. But I mean, like you said, with the rat guy, then, you know, you still have to get him, you still have to buff him. So there's a little bit of work that has to go into that strategy. But yeah, maybe if they did change Sylvanas to work like this, then maybe replicating Menace comes out of the pool.
Possibly, which would be interesting, because that's also such another sought after card in the tier 3.
Yeah. Which is why, like, I mean, replicating Menace, when you say that's a problem, I'm just like, I'm sick of seeing it anyway. Like, I would be totally fine if they just took that out.
Yeah. But I'm getting away from my Sylvanas point.
Sorry.
Just not a great hero power at the end of the day. Yeah. There's not enough power here in essentially a +2/+2 for getting rid of a minion and not gaining a gold for it. I mean, if anything else, less insane. Give us a gold when we do it. Give us 1 gold.
I was gonna say, change that from remove a friendly minion to sell a friendly minion.
Yeah. Yeah, and instead of it going over to Bob, it just disappears. You get your gold back, and then it also +1/+1s adjacent minions. That would make me far more interested, and you wouldn't have to possibly blow your game up by coming up with cool death
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna remove Infinite Toki off this one. I've been thinking about this one all day. I'm taking Infinite Toki off. I think she's fine. I think the high roll, low roll on Infinite Toki is painful, but I don't think she needs a buff.
It's part of her charm.
I could not decide on this one. I've been waffling back and forth on it all day. I'm calling an audible right now. And then I think maybe Shudderwalk. This is like again, kind of like Akazamzarak is like the salt pick for me, and who needs a nerf. Shudderwalk is kind of just the personal pick. I think with Amalgam gone and Battlecry strategies not what they once were, I don't think burbling is a particularly strong hero power.
Yeah.
But this is like right on
I agree with that.
Right on
I think
cusp.
It should be cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. This is right on the cusp. Like if anyone wanted to fight me on this, I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't feel like I understand. Anyone that wants to be like, no, it's fine. It doesn't need it. Shudderwalk doesn't need to be buffed. I'm not going to fight you too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But really it's Finley, Wagtoggle, Sylvanas for me in terms of who needs a buff. And really it's Edwin, Yogg, and Rafam as to who needs a nerf. Akazamzarak maybe needs a nerf, and specifically I want Ice Block to just be impossible to get 2 turns in a row. And Shudderwalk, I just miss Battlecries. I miss him, Joss. I miss him. That, however, does make Curator really cool, because suddenly all my knowledge from an old meta of Battlegrounds is relevant again.
Applies to a hero, yeah.
That is a really cool thing, I have to say. I haven't had a chance to go off on this rant, and I won't here because we're already over an hour into the show, but I think that's really rad. So anyways, so there you have it. That's who I think needs to be nerfed. That's who I think needs to be buffed. I'm really excited to see what they do with Battlegrounds.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if we actually get new heroes coming sooner rather than later, because that is always the most fun time for me. I mean, I don't play Battlegrounds like nearly as much or as competitively as some people, Garrett included. But I really, really like the game mode, just because, especially where I start to get burnt out or get some ladder anxiety over on standard, I never get those feelings. And I mentioned it on the show before, but I never get those feelings when I go into Battlegrounds. So it's a really good like palette refresher. I don't have to go to another game now. I can just, play around at Battlegrounds and then I go back to my standard ladder. So yeah, like I'm always like seeing new heroes coming in and what they're going to be able to do. And yeah, I'm totally on board with everything that you said in terms of buffs and nerfs. I mean, I don't really have anything else to add, only that maybe as people start, because this is one thing I think when we was it in the Trixler episode or maybe Raven? Oh, I can't remember now. But yeah, like somebody was saying that like Daryl was like super cool and super fun, but like no one knows what they're doing. I feel like as people start to learn how to use him more, and I think like I mentioned the streams I was watching on the weekend, people are starting to learn how to use him. And so I think he could maybe get out of hand quickly. But is he like a high enough skill cap that that's okay? But I think Daryl's like a wait and see, I think.
Yeah, at the moment, I still think he's all right.
Yeah,
I still think he's all right, but again, kind of on the cusp. I think you can make a strong argument for Daryl needs to be nerfed. But I kind of want to keep him there. I want him dangling there as this goal.
This thing you can learn and be amazing. Yeah.
And folks aren't going to chase it if the power level isn't there.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that. I also like getting in the game and being like, there's a Daryl. What kind of Daryl are they? Are they I'm playing 3D chess Daryl? Or are they the I'm playing checkers Daryl? Or maybe I'm playing tic-tac-toe Daryl. And I'm not shaming anyone. If you're all the tic-tac-toe Daryls out there, let's be friends because I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
So it's a cool thing for sure. I generally take a Blizzard break over the holiday break. I'll usually go and visit non-Blizzard games. And I did do that a little bit. Let me tell you about the Toyota Supra finally being added to Forza Horizon 4, or the fact that I actually care about a Call of Duty game for the first time since Modern Warfare 2. Had some fun for sure. But I spent the most hours of my game time over the holiday break playing Battlegrounds. I could not stop. I couldn't. It just kept calling to me. There were so many nights where I was up till 2 a.m, which is hard for me to do now. I went to bed at 12:30 on New Year's Eve. But there were so many 2 a.m. nights where it was
old man Garrett.
It was that one more game, man. And Battlegrounds has its hooks in me bad. Just bad. Every break I have, every time I'm doing some freelance video editing. All right, got to export. All right, this is going to take like half an hour. Ooh, you know what I can do for half an hour while this exports? Or send it off to the client?
Battlegrounds can take half an hour.
Battlegrounds. Yep. It's only damn thing I want to do. I just don't want to do it on my phone.
No, dude, that is fair enough. I hate playing Battlegrounds on my phone. I did it one time and I was like, whoa, too slow. Can't do it.
Hope you like the rope.
Yep.
Hope you like the rope. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our Battleground segment this week, which means there's only one thing left to do, and that's to hear from you in our email section.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello?
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
If you want to write in, be a part of the show, send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. If you're a patron, congrats, you're in the Discord. Write us there. Skip the inbox entirely. But hidden jester, not gesture.
Hidden gestures? Ooh.
Hidden gestures, yeah. It's like a wink. Is that a hidden gesture? But hidden jester, which would be a bad gesture if you couldn't see them. That wouldn't be very entertaining. Yeah. Writes in and says, one of the many things I missed over time was the rise of esports in general. I'd like to start following Hearthstone since I play the game enough, but honestly, I get lost when you go over it in the show, and when I go to playhearthstone.com or Twitch, I can never quite find the Start Here handle to start making sense of it. Anybody know where the Dummy's Guide to Watching Hearthstone Esports is? And I would throw to you, Josh, because I honestly don't know the answer to this question. For any esport.
Well, I feel like that's just not true, Garrett, because you are the one that turned me on to Liquipedia, which is honestly the easiest way to see the stuff that's up and coming, right?
Ooh.
They have a whole calendar and schedule there. What?
If that's the easiest way, I mean, I guess it depends really
Oh
on...
yeah, no, it's brutal. Like there is no real super easy way.
Like, where do you want to start, Hidden Jester? Because, like, do you want the whole Hearthstone history? Because, like, I can't help you, and no one really can. There's no, like, one-stop shop that here's everything you ever needed to know about Hearthstone esports, including that time with the show tournament where Artosis won by casting Blizzard, and everyone said Illuminati confirmed. Other than me just rambling that off,
Yeah.
I don't know of a one-stop shop that will bring you completely up to speed on Hearthstone esports. The point is, though, I don't think you need to be. I honestly think at the most simple level, you could just tune in to a live broadcast and you'll be fine. If you play Hearthstone.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, you don't need a full-on history starting in 2014 or anything crazy like that. I mean, you know, you've got Liquipedia, which will show you everything that's up and coming, and it has links to all the players and teams and stuff, and all of the history is there if that's the kind of thing that interests you. But on playhearthstone.com, you can actually go, there's like an esports link up at the top. And so that will take you to the esports section. It's not the greatest. It can be kind of hard to figure out sometimes, but the information is there. And I mean, if you're looking at watching Hearthstone esports, then you've basically got the Masters Tour events and the Grandmasters. So Grandmasters is weekly, at least in 2019. And I'm not 100% sure what the broadcast schedule is going to look like in 2020. But in 2019, we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday games. So basically every weekend you had Grandmasters to watch. And that's all on the main Hearthstone Twitch channel. I'll talk about Twitch in a second. Actually, you know what? I'll talk about Twitch right now because it's pretty straightforward. You can go onto Twitch, make an account, and follow Play Hearthstone on Twitch. It's literally twitch.tv/Play Hearthstone. Or you can go to browse on Twitch and then just click on the big Hearthstone like game box icon thing, and that'll show you everyone who's currently streaming Hearthstone. So it's really, really easy to find Hearthstone on Twitch. But in terms of like actual official Hearthstone esports, then that's where it's going to be on the Play Hearthstone Twitch account. And then you've got your, like I said, Grandmasters on the weekends. And then this year in 2020, they just put up a post, like I was talking about earlier, that detailed what they're doing with Masters in 2020. And as of right now, they have details posted of 6 different tour stops, which again, fall on the weekends and are usually 3-day long events, sometimes 4, sometimes 2. But those events are going to be happening throughout 2020. So that schedule is in a blog post. It's also in our show notes. So if you guys want to find our show notes, then the link will be down there. But yeah, we did get all the details. So those are the 2 kind of major Hearthstone esports events are your weekly Grandmaster League. And then every month or 2, we're going to be getting a tour. So that's like the big live lands that they put together. These Master Tour events are going to dictate who gets into Grandmasters. It's going to be the same as in 2019 where they take a winnings thing. So yeah, we've got, like I said, 6 tour stops this year. And that's your big major Hearthstone event. So you can always find Hearthstone being played on Twitch, but if you're looking specifically for the esport, then you're looking for either a tour stop or the weekly Grandmasters broadcasts.
Well put. Yeah. I'm a big fan also just of the Play Hearthstone or the Hearthstone esports YouTube, because last year during all of Grandmasters, they had the VODs up within, I want to say 24 hours. It was
pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, for regions that don't happen at times when I am awake and cognitive, that worked out really well. But also I have watched enough that I have players that I am a fan of. Or matchups, like big matchups that I definitely want to see, and I don't necessarily want to watch every other damn match, because it's a lot of games. Even though it's pared down from years past, it's still a lot of games of Hearthstone. So honestly,
on the Grandmaster weekends, there were some times where like I'd watch NA and then I'd go do something else, and then I would know that I was staying up pretty late at night because APAC had started again, because APAC started at about like 3 a.m. my time or something. You may need to
explain to Hidden Jester what APAC is.
Right. Okay. So yes, there are 3. Well, there's
not just
4
I don't want to like single out Hidden Jester. I'm sure there's multiple
yeah.
listeners that don't know what APAC is.
That's true. So there are 4 regions represented in Hearthstone. So you have NA, which is North America. And also actually does take in some of the South American players as well. South America does not have its own region. So they play, it's the Americas, even though everyone kind of shortens it to NA, but it's not only North America. It is actually the Americas, so North and South America. Then you have EU, which is Europe, and then APAC, which is Asia Pacific. And then there is also the China region, although like 95% of their tournaments are not streamed outside of China. So for the most part, we don't actually get to see Chinese players unless they are taking part in Masters tours and actually traveling outside of China. But they have what's called the Gold Series. And like I said, we don't get to see those if you don't live in China. I don't actually know where you live, Hidden Jester, so maybe you can see the Chinese broadcast. But yeah, us in North America don't get the Chinese broadcast. So
yep.
Yeah, that's basically it. Those are the 4 Hearthstone regions. And so when Grandmasters runs, they start basically with, it's like they start at, say, noon local time in all the regions, which means that Asia Pacific starts first, and then their broadcast ends, and Europe starts right after that, and then their broadcast ends, and North America starts up. So they basically have about 20 hours a day of live Hearthstone going on as they kind of move around the world and cover each region. And that, again, runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you get this little kind of lull between about 11 p.m. Eastern time in North America and 3 a.m. between when North America ends and when APAC starts. And so, like I said, when I see APAC going live and I'm able to watch APAC live, I'm like, Jocelyn, you are up too late. You should be going to bed. What are you doing? But yeah, that happened to me a lot in 2019.
Yeah. And so I would honestly say just start watching a few games, whether it's live or on the YouTube channel after the fact, and then go just take a look at the standings. Because once it kicks off, they're going to have a standings page on the official website, and you can pretty quickly start getting a picture of how the players are actually progressing throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
No, but definitely right back in and let us know how this went for you, Hidden Jester. If we helped, if we hurt, and whether you're enjoying or still confused once you start watching the new Grandmaster season for 2020.
Yeah, I do find that the commentators, especially so if you're watching the VODs and you're new to Hearthstone esports, I would very, very much recommend that you watch the commentary in between the matches, because they do a really good job of giving you a rundown often of like how the players have done in previous seasons, maybe what their favorite classes or decks happen to be, how the matchups are going to shape up. So, like this player brought these 3 decks, this player brought these 3 decks, and, who has the competitive advantage straight from a stats perspective and how they expect the match to go. But yeah, they do a really good job of giving you some of that historical context. So if you are watching VODs, like don't skip straight to the Hearthstone. The commentary is actually really, really good ahead of the matches, and they'll give you a good idea of what's about to happen, which again, if you're new to Hearthstone esports, it's good context.
Yeah. So go check it out and enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, even if you're not sure of the overarching story, you're going to see some really good high-level Hearthstone play.
Oh, yeah. And especially since you mentioned that you do actually like play the game a lot, then, I mean, you're going to be able to sit down. You're going to be familiar with the cards and what they do. So you don't have that barrier that some people do. So I think you'll be fine. Just go follow twitch.tv/playhearthstone. Go follow that channel.
Give it a look-see. Yeah. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Keep the emails coming, everybody. tacpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to watch us live, we are now recording Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/amovetv. So if you couldn't watch live before, well, maybe you can now. Or you can always catch it on VOD after the fact over youtube.com/amovetv, or it's a podcast. Most of you are listening to this audio only. You're not even looking at us. I don't know why I bother with an overlay sometimes. But didn't even bother doing my hair today.
You do it for the chat room.
Damn right I do it. Sup, chat room? How you doing? But yeah, come join us live. Come join us on the download. Wherever you get the Angry Chicken, you are helping us out. So thank you so much for listening. Also, thank you to our Patreon producers, Declan H. and Cheesy Bob. Thank you so much for the support. And again, if you like this podcast, you want to support it, patreon.com/TAC is the best way to do so. Every little bit helps, everybody. We really appreciate it. So other than that, follow us on Twitter at TAC Podcast. And Joss, you do all sorts of stuff outside of the Angry Chicken. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. I don't really have anything to pimp right now. I just actually started a new job, so I'm moving the streaming schedules around, trying to figure out my new sleep schedule. So yeah, things are a little bit up in the air right now, but whenever I am streaming, then you will find it over on Twitch or on Twitter. I'll be tweeting out when I'm going live. So hoping to get at least 1, if not 2 streams in a week.
Nice. I haven't been streaming over the holiday break because I just needed some me time. And also,
you needed a break. Imagine that.
yeah, it was nice. It was very, very nice. But I'm also glad to be back. And folks, if you want to see what I'm up to, I can be found over at Garrett Art on Twitter. There's 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett. I trust you know how to spell art. Everything else is at amove.tv. Let's Talk About Star Wars has been coming to you weekly. We just put up our Rise of Skywalker spoiler episode and our finale of The Mandalorian spoiler episode, so go listen to that. Tom is now away at CES, but we'll have more Let's Talk About Star Wars coming to you soon. WoW Killer, my new World of Warcraft podcast with Taliesin. Yes, that Taliesin is coming back tomorrow with our 3rd episode. You can find that wherever podcasts can be found. Everything else is at amove.tv. Go check it out. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. I hope you're having a great start to the new year. I know we are. We'll see you next week. But until then, job's done.
Job's done.